What's going on, everybody? It's your boy C-Zar, and we are talking about Ethereum today at the request of Cal. Cal, we're doing this for you. Hit that like button, you guys. Subscribe if you want to see more content like this. We're going to get into it right away. The goal of this video is to get a better understanding of where Ethereum is for this bull cycle. How much of a bull cycle does it have left? How high can it go, and where and when will it top off, right? All those types of questions. Hopefully we can provide answers. I want this to be kind of a similar video to the one that I did with Bitcoin yesterday, just going over the all-time history and comparing it to its previous cycles and seeing if we can come up with some answers or an idea for what the end of this cycle might look like for Ethereum. So here we are. Again, if that sounds good to you, hit that like button, you guys. Helps the video grow, or helps the channel grow. It helps push the video out to other people who might want to see this. And if you want to keep seeing stuff like this, definitely subscribe. But enough shilling of my own channel here. Looking at the Ethereum chart, this is the all-time history, right? We type in Ethereum, we go to all-time history index here, right? That's this chart. And automatically what I want to do is I want to compare Bitcoin. I want to do Bitcoin, new price scale, throw Bitcoin up on there. And I think maybe it'll be fine as a line chart. Let's make it a candle chart. Let's make it a candlestick chart. Now they look similar, right? But I think it's easy to discern which one is the Bitcoin chart and which one's the Ethereum chart here. We'll even change the colors a little bit. The orange one is Bitcoin, right? The more like, I don't know, this would be like cherry lemonade to me, and then this is like Christmas up here. Christmas, Ethereum, cherry lemonade, or like pink starburst. I don't know. That's Bitcoin. Okay, so what I want to point out, the whole purpose of this part right here is the halving periods for Bitcoin and Ethereum's relationship to these halving periods. Okay, so if we take the horizontal line tool here and we go to July of 2016, because July, we're going to look at the Bitcoin chart for this part. Okay, so we look at July of 2016. That was the Bitcoin halving in 2016. The high that we had right before that was right here. So this was our pre-halving high. You know, Ethereum was chilling, had a little bit of a pump up, but it was chilling. Once Bitcoin broke above its pre-halving high here, that was it for Ethereum chilling. Then it went on a run. It actually went on a run for, let's see how many months. Get rid of this. 13 months. Out of those 13 months, again, this was after Bitcoin broke above its halving, pre-halving high. Bitcoin had a halving in July. It was July 9th, 2016. It had a high right before then, as it often does. Every single cycle, we've had this pre-halving high come upon us. And once we broke that, Ethereum went on a 13-month spree to the upside, of which only 2 of those months were red. Everything else was green. I think it's more fair to say 2 months were red, these two here, and then 1 month was neutral. I think that's fair, right? It wasn't green or red. Very neutral month. So in other words, out of 13 months, 10 months for Ethereum saw action, right? The smallest month of which that was green and wasn't neutral. That was a 22% month from open to close. And even then, we saw an overall growth of 78% in that month. At the high, it just came back down from there, right? So very strong and immaculate moves month after month after month in just this first iteration here. So we're going to take this idea and run with it. We're going to do it to the next one here. So Bitcoin in the next cycle had its halving on May 11th, 2020. Okay, that was its halving. The pre-halving high, undisputably right here, right there, that's the pre-halving high. Once we broke above it, it was this month here. Ethereum had been moving up for quite some time actually already, but at this point in time, it looked like it was ready to break out of this kind of consolidation phase that it was at, right? When Bitcoin was breaking out of its pre-halving high, Ethereum was ready to break out of its consolidation phase here. So the month that Bitcoin broke out of its pre-halving high, and that was actually this month, you technically did go just above it on this month. So we're going to measure it from this month here. Ethereum on this cycle, which was last cycle, rallied essentially for 13 months again. 13 months both times, 13 months and 13 months. And this time in that 13-month period, you had 2 months, 3 months that were red. Really, maybe 2 months that were red, 1 month that was neutral. In this stint, the shortest or the smallest amount of upside that you saw was 11% from an open to close basis. And then here, that was 8% actually. 8% being the smallest amount you saw from an open to close basis. But during that 8% month, you did grow a total of 60% from open to top. You grew 60%, so you just came back down. So even in your small months, you saw some growth, right? But 13 months, out of these 13 months, really only 2 of them were red. 1 was kind of neutral. Maybe 2 were neutral. But still, again, 13 months after the halving, that's how long it took you to find your high both times, okay? both times. And there's more stuff that'll concur with this kind of idea. So here we are in the 2024 cycle. Sorry guys, I have asthma. Hit that like button for asthma, baby, or for not liking asthma. I don't like it, man. It's pretty damn annoying. It's like the lamest chronic disease you could have, but it is a chronic disease. Anyways, pre-halving high was right here, right? April 20th, 2024 was the most recent halving we had. Here was our pre-halving high right there. We've just broken above it, okay? So going with the same trend that we've done based off the Bitcoin halving, or at least incorporating that into the Ethereum cycle here, because Ethereum doesn't have a halving period, right? If we're going from the month that we broke out of the halving, which was here, okay, so that was this month here, 1 month. We're gonna have 13 months, right? How did I measure it last time? Was it above this high? Was it from this month to there? Okay, so it would have been from the month that we broke above the pre-halving high. It would have been from this month. Okay. I want to make sure I did the same thing over here real quick. Hold on. Right, because it was July. You would have broken above it. Was it that? That wasn't it. No, you didn't get above it. It would have been this month. So here it would have been 13 months both times. Measuring from the month that you broke out. Not from the low. Coincidentally, it was this low here, but it was from the month we broke out on Bitcoin. From the month we broke out on Bitcoin. From the month we broke out on Bitcoin, that would be here last month, November, and then 13 months later would put this in December of 2025 that Ethereum tops out. And that makes a lot of sense for a few reasons, guys, for a handful of reasons. Okay, here's the big thing with that, right? 13 months, 13 months, 13 months. That's essentially the simple prediction here. Now, it's very obvious, I think at least it should be obvious, that we could deviate from this, right? It's been 13 months exactly the last two times. Might it on the third time be 11 months? Might it be 15 months? Might it be somewhere in between, right? It doesn't have to be exactly 13 months, but that's a good kind of area to associate with, okay? December 2025. Now this part of the video would pair very well with yesterday's Bitcoin, where is it at? Bitcoin cycle, when and where does it end, that video. This part of the video would pair very well with that, because if you watch that video, if you watch any of my long-term Bitcoin videos, you would know that I'm expecting Bitcoin to top in October of 2025, maybe November. Realistically, sometime for me, it's between like August and December of 2025 is when I'm expecting Bitcoin to top. Specifically, October is what I'm thinking, okay? And that's a big deal, right? Because here we are on Ethereum saying it could top in December. That would be when Ethereum tops, okay? Now, let's analyze Bitcoin and Ethereum again, but through a different sense. We look at the 2017 cycle for Bitcoin. Here was its all-time high. When did Ethereum top? It wasn't during this same month, was it? No. It was 1 month after. Ethereum topped 1 month after the Bitcoin bull cycle ended. All right, this Bitcoin bull cycle ended here. The all-time high was over here, but the bull cycle ended here. There's no denying that, right? Ethereum this time, it still actually had a momentary top 1 month after. One month after Bitcoin topped here at the end of its cycle, Ethereum topped as well, but 1 month after again. Right, so each cycle, depending on where you want it, where you want to say Bitcoin's top is, Ethereum has topped either here 1 month after or several months after Bitcoin did, right? For the last two cycles, and it's actually very common, not just for Ethereum, but for any cryptos that have existed for Bitcoin even before the 2017 cycle. We've seen these altcoins top after Bitcoin tops. It's not common that they top before Bitcoin tops. And last cycle was a bit odd, and I think it's going to throw a lot of people off for this cycle, and that's why I want to get this message out there. I don't want anyone to get thrown off. Everybody watching this video, whether you either know this already or you don't, I want you to be prepared, because a lot of people are going to try and say that altcoins are going to top off before Bitcoin this cycle, because last cycle, that's how it seemed. And they did. Bitcoin had a new all-time high, but the thing is altcoins, their cycle ended at the same time the Bitcoin cycle ended, and actually most of them ended in May, which would be 1 month after Bitcoin's cycle ended. It didn't top over there, it topped over here, but that was still 1 month after Bitcoin's cycle ended, and Ethereum ended there. So I'm getting hung up on this. Let's move on. Okay, so again, going with the 13-month thing, from breaking out of your pre-halving high, you break out of that. From there on, 13 months later, right? It's not Ethereum breaking out of the pre-halving high. It's Bitcoin breaking out of its pre-halving high. Every time we've done that, for Bitcoin, we see Ethereum go on a nonstop, or not a nonstop spree, but a spree where 13 months is essentially just to the upside. 2 of those months might be red, maybe 1 of them or 2 of them will be neutral, but most of those months, 9 to 10 of those months will be green months, right, with substantial growth. So if we were to measure from here, that'd be December 2025, assuming that Bitcoin tops in October or November of 2025, which lines up with what I've been expecting, what I've been calling for the last 2 years straight. Now, I haven't altered it at all. October 25 is what I stuck with. Seeing stuff like this makes me want to alter. The only thing that I've ever wanted to alter of my prediction for October 2025, I've wanted to make it later. I have a lot more suspicious reasoning to believe that we top in November, but it could be October. I think too many people expect it to be November, so maybe contrarian outlook, we top in October. I don't know. But either way, if Ethereum were to top in December, maybe Bitcoin tops in late October. It doesn't top in November, but it tops in late October. So then it is like it tops a month later. On the charts, it'll look like it's 2 months later. That's kind of my theory at this moment. Watch it happen. I don't know. But okay, so we've got that out of the way. I thought that was kind of interesting, a very simple metric to look at, okay? We take the all-time high from the 2018-2017 cycle here, high to low. You can see last cycle you went up to your 1414. I do expect, or suspect, I should say, that last cycle, not just for Bitcoin, but for all of cryptos, if not most cryptos, 99% of cryptos, it was a lackluster cycle. It was something that was weak. So what I'm getting at is if the last cycle from high to low, we went to our 1414, I would expect that this cycle we go to a higher fib level. Essentially, that's what my expectation would be. So from a high to low here, last cycle you topped at your 1414. This cycle I would expect you at least top at your 1618, if not potentially your 1886. Now I don't think you stray too much from there. You get above your 1886, the next likely target area would be something like 42K. So I don't think you're going to go there this cycle. But a lot of cryptos do like their 1886 200 area. So prices above 20K should be on the radar for anybody who's investing in Ethereum. And again, if these prices were to happen, they would be by the end of 2025. We're expecting November, December time 2025, okay? Specifically December by the metrics we've gone over in this video so far. Okay, at least 14K. Because again, I'm expecting this cycle to be stronger than last cycle. I don't think we're going to stop at the 1414 like we did last cycle, which means the next expected minimum target would be 14K, okay? We're at 4K now. If Ethereum pumps, if it has that much left in it, that means altcoins are going to have a field day, you guys. It's going to be amazing. And again, this is going to happen over the next basically 12 months. Maybe I should say 11 and a half months because we're about halfway done with this month. Okay. Let's see. What else? We got this thing here where I went over this in the Bitcoin chart yesterday as well. This part I think would tie over pretty well with the ending that I had in that Bitcoin video. You go on the monthly aspect here for your RSI, right? We're on the monthly time frame. This is Bitcoin now, right? We're looking at the monthly RSI, and you can see that you have 2 peaks here. You have 2 peaks here in the monthly RSI, 2 peaks here, 1 peak here, 2 peaks there. So it was 2 peaks. They're just further apart. And we don't have the peaks yet. It looks like we have peaks here, but those are not the peaks. I do not think that these are the peaks, okay? All of these peaks, what they have in common is the second peak from each of these instances. All of them, all the second peaks, even this one, they all were the all-time high for Bitcoin. That was the month that Bitcoin topped off, okay? What they also have in common is that from a high point here to like connecting all these high points down, we've intersected this line every single time for resistance cycle after cycle, okay? This last cycle was the only cycle that our second peak did not hit the line. The second peak still was our all-time high, okay? I have a point with this. I'm talking about it for Bitcoin because Bitcoin has this kind of behavior. I think that we're going to, move up to this resistance line, and then we'll come down. We'll form our second peak, or maybe it'll be a peak like this. Who knows? But once we have our second peak, that's whenever we'll top off. Ethereum kind of has its own thing going on with the RSI, or at least so I assume. It's not as well established. It's not as long lived, right? It doesn't have as much of a history as Bitcoin does, but we do have 2 iterations right here, 1 and 2, that to me seem pretty comparable to what we have going on here with Bitcoin, right? Very high in the overbought zone. Like even this most recent one here, that small one that was at, or the low one was at 94 of a read. Everything else has been higher, so 94 and up. We go to Ethereum here. This one that we had last cycle, that was at like a near 95 and up. So I feel like it's very similar. And then again, cycle after cycle. And here's the other thing too. It's not quite the same as these two peaks coming in line. Like this is all just so perfect. Even here, it's kind of funny, but even these two peaks, it still works. It's still there. It's just this is one, you know, this is like, it's like if you had 4 people, right? You've got 3 people that are pretty, and then this one person is kind of oddly shaped, but still is a person, okay? Anyways, I don't know if that's a good comparison to make. I love all people, oddly shaped or not, man. Aren't we all oddly shaped to some degree? Anyways, Ethereum has its own odd shapes because it has second peaks as well, right? It's got 1 peak here, 2 peaks here, 1 peak here, 2, 3 peaks here, right? And even you could argue 2, 3 peaks here as well. And it was, you'd be surprised or maybe not so surprised to find out that it was on these last peaks, the third peak technically here that you topped off, the third peak technically here that you topped off in Ethereum, and you haven't interacted with this line yet. Okay, so if we again connect this line, I just wanted to get rid of all the things, and we measure from the first peak to the second peak, or I should say the last peak, the first peak to the last peak, 7 months. Okay. First peak here to the last peak, again, 7 months. I love the symmetry. I love the symmetry. I wonder with this second peak, that was 2 months. This one looks a little bit more than 2 months. That was 4 months, okay. So not as much symmetry there, but 7 months both times, okay. So we look at Ethereum, literally both times last cycle and the cycle before, you had this move up after Bitcoin broke out of its pre-halving high, and then you had a momentary top off here where you kind of moved sideways, and you had your last push up to the end of the cycle. When you topped off and had that momentary sideways move between this high to that high, that was 7 months, which is your peak to peak in your RSI here, right? After interacting with this trend line for the first time. You do the same thing over here, right? Bitcoin breaks out of its pre-halving highs, Ethereum goes on a run. Its stopping point, its first stopping point here is comparable to this stopping point here. From high to high there, that was 6 months. Is that right? 6 months? How is it 7 months down here? Oh, okay, it's 7 months down here because this high in the RSI was on this month because it was green, right? But whatever, even by a price metric, it's still pretty close. It's almost identical to what we have on the RSI metric, right? It kind of makes sense. And if we go from the high, if we went from like the high monthly close, maybe that would make sense too. But I digress. Okay, so essentially what I'm saying by this part, if it's not clear, is that we'll know when Ethereum hits this line, we'll know that we are about half a year, if not just over half a year away from the end of Ethereum's cycle, and therefore probably most of crypto, right? Because Bitcoin is not, when Bitcoin cycle ends, that's not when the altcoin cycle ends. It's actually, it's like a precursor to the altcoin cycle ending, but it's actually really good for altcoins. We get a nice little boost because Bitcoin sells off. People try to reallocate and catch some last minute pumps with altcoins, and we get a nice little pump finale rally with the altcoins. So Ethereum will be a more prominent indicator, I think, for that kind of metric to determine when the altcoin cycle's over. And I think looking at this RSI, whether it's like me, you have a 10 RSI or you have a 14, whatever, I'm sure that the highs would line up the same. They just might not be at the same readings. But when we get this first high, which I would assume will be soon, we will know that we are basically within just over a half year's period away from the cycle ending, and probably also in another state of, or another way of wording that, we're about half a year away from Bitcoin topping off. This might be a good indication for Bitcoin topping off too, right? Once we get to this line, that could mean we are 6 months away by these last two metrics alone from Bitcoin topping off potentially. And if that were to be true, if Bitcoin were to top off in October, like I think it's going to, and that's the 10th month of the year, then that would potentially mean that we would see this Ethereum RSI interacting with the top here in April. You're just basically going to go on a moon mission until April, right? Because April's right here. You're just going to go like that, essentially. And we already know that you are going to do this essentially because what we've measured so far from the previous 2 cycles is that once Bitcoin breaks above its pre-halving all-time high, or pre-halving cycle high, once Bitcoin does that, Ethereum goes on a 13-month run to the upside, of which only 2 months are red, and then 1 month might be neutral, or 2 months might be neutral. But that means that 9 to 10 months are green, right? Green prospecting months that build. So, and you just started it. So yes, I do expect that Ethereum will probably do a lot of growing between now and April. That's kind of my assumption at the moment. Look at this, right? because Bitcoin broke above its halving. I don't want to do that again, actually. No, we're not going to do that again. But all right, let's finish this up here maybe. Looking at the monthly RSI again, coming back to this, we're bouncing off the 50. We got some nice higher lows coming in. It does appear to me that we are going to run up. You know, however high we run up is debatable, but I do think that we're going to interact with this trend line, which probably will take us as high as, let's say, like 90s. You're going to be in the 90s on your monthly RSI by April. So, dude, that can promote a very immaculate pump. I'm just kind of curious, actually, when you went on this run here, okay, from a low to a relative high, like where you top, that was a 68x, okay. From your low here, I would say, not this low, right? Like this low up here, yeah. That's it's actually very similar to what you did back here. That low there to where you topped off, that was a 14x. So 68x, 14x, a little bit smaller, obviously. Last cycle was a bit weaker too, but from your low here, because I think that's the comparable low in the RSI that we've had. If we were to, you know, kind of continue this trend where you see it grow less, 68, I don't know, let's just try it real quick. Let's go to Google Calculator. Wouldn't it be funny if this was a 5.3 theory as well? Steve would have a field day if he figured this out. I don't know if it is, but let's see. 68 divided by, or would I do it divided by 5.3? No. I would do, yeah, I think I'd do 68 divided by 13 or 14. What was it? 14. It's 68.4. We'll do 68.4 divided by 14.2. 68.4 divided by 14.2. Yeah, 14.2. No, what just happened? Divided by 14.17, whatever. So it's not a 5.8 theory or 5.3 theory. It's a 4.82 theory. Probably not, but 4.82. That's what it is. That is the divisor. That's what it's divided by. So 14.7 divided by 4.82. Is that what I would do? 14.17 divided by 4.82. Is that what I would do? Is that right? That can't be right. I'm doing it wrong. I'm missing something. Anyways, guys, just rough math here, thinking about it in my head. If we were to divide it, or would I subtract that? Is that how much I would subtract? It wouldn't be a 14.2x. No, that doesn't make any sense. Maybe it would be a 2x. So we wouldn't do a 3x. I'm sorry, guys. I know that it might be a little confusing what I'm doing right now. That would, if we were to carry this same ratio over, right, in deficit from a 68x to a 14x, and then that ratio of a loss in percentage growth, if we were to carry that same ratio over to this, that would mean that we only get a 3x essentially, which is 290% in growth. 290% in growth, then by that metric would mean that Ethereum by April, because that's essentially what I'm trying to measure, by April would be worth about $8,000. And I think that actually kind of makes a lot of sense, because from a high to a low, your next target area is at $7,700, right? I just don't know if it takes you until April to get there. You could be there by the end of January, which if that's the case, you know, maybe by April, you're at like 10 to 14K. I don't know. I would wonder what the measurements are, what the formulaic inputs would have to be for the RSI to get here. I don't have that kind of capacity of thinking right now to do that. So I'm just looking at this, trying to determine where I think Ethereum's going to be whenever the RSI does come up here, because I do believe it's going to come up here where the price is going to be. We already established when it's going to be. It's likely going to be April that we're going to be up here. So if the price moves up to this, would that be enough to make the RSI jump all the way up to a 90? I don't think it would be. I think Ethereum by April, you guys, might be at 10K. I guess what I'm going to leave you guys with, we'll end the video here, okay? Because we've gone over the cycle dynamics, right? We've gone over enough of like what to expect. We're expecting Ethereum to top off probably a month or two after Bitcoin. Probably a month, but a month or two. By the metrics we've gone over, it would make sense that it could top off in November or December, really. And there's plenty of other stuff to go over that we haven't gone over in this video yet. What else was I going to say? We know that we're likely going to hit this line sometime, I would think, around April. That's just like going off of how quickly we've moved up to these areas before. That just would make sense to me. However, I don't believe that if we were to move up to this line, this white line on the monthly aspect, I don't believe that getting to 7,700 would do it. I think we'd need higher targets. So potentially then by April we'll be at 10K. That's kind of the target destination at the moment. I guess that's the call for the video. End of cycle, anywhere between 14K and 27K. I really like areas around 20K. Maybe you fall just shy of that 1886. Maybe you break just above it. At least 14K. But man, if you are at 10K by April, I have a hard time believing that you're only at 14K by the end of this cycle, but time will tell. We'll see how it goes. Again, I think by the end of April, by the time that we are up at this line, seeing where the price is, that will give us a better understanding of what we could expect for the end of the cycle. But at the moment, my expectations would be something, I suppose, closer to this than it would be to this, and I'm thinking we're going to be around 10K by April. So I don't have anything else that I want to say. Again, these higher targets would be by the end of this year, but by the end of 2025, so like November, December times. I think I've said everything that I need to say, you guys. It does look like the Ethereum Bitcoin chart. We're looking at it on a monthly basis. It's in this just torrential downtrend on the monthly, and it looks like it's at the end of the trend, right? The RSI can only go so far down, especially on a monthly basis. I think with where Ethereum's at, it's probably bottomed versus Bitcoin. So it'll start running, and that makes sense too, because generally in this phase of the market, this is when we see Ethereum do good versus Bitcoin, do well. It bounced right off its golden ratio area. In fact, the fact that it didn't touch its golden ratio, it got close but didn't touch, that's a more bullish thing than it is a less bullish thing. It's actually really bullish. Weekly RSI, bullish divergence forming, also in a downtrend. Looking like you might want to break out of that soon. You can only go down so far, and the daily RSI already is in an uptrend right now, and it's looking fierce. So a lot of good things coming for Ethereum. What's good for ETH is good for alts. I got nothing else I want to say. If you guys like the video, hit that like button, subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Thank you all for being here. 10K by April, 20K by December of next year. Those are the calls for now, and we'll go from there. All right, bye-bye.